saw something out of the corner of my eye off the side of the road in a culvert. And sure enough, there was 2 feet prints on either side of this hole.
We heard an absolute inhuman noise.
I freaked. I panicked. When that thing come out from behind the tree, it scared the hell out of me, and I just said, I'm not going back down there.
You're listening to the Skunk Ape Files. And now, here are your hosts, Stacy Brown Jr. and Paul Sanson.
Hi, and welcome to the Skunk Ape Files. I am Stacy Brown Jr.
And I'm Paul Sanson.
And we are your hosts for tonight's program. So, tonight's program, speaking of, we have a friend of mine. He's a fellow researcher. His name is Marty Morgan. But before we get to that, how you been doing, Paul?
I'm all right. Been a little under the weather, but
Uh-oh. Did you get the
feeling
crud?
all right now. Yep.
Uh-oh. Not good. These days, if you
No.
get a little sick, you don't know what's happening.
Well, I didn't get it as bad as Amanda did. She got it pretty bad.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
No bueno, man. So have you been out? Have you been out doing any skunk ape research?
No, just been hanging out. Ready to get back out there and see. I'm already over going back to the bar and all that.
Right.
So.
Well, I actually went out over the weekend with my son. We went and run some trout lines, and we went back into Tate's Hell, which, if you listeners are not familiar with Tate's Hell, it's this vast wilderness up in North Florida Panhandle, and it's got a legend to it. I'm not really clear on what the legend is, but there's something about, I believe, Jedediah Tate. He had made a deal with an Indian that lived in the swamp, and he was to give the Indian one pig every winter, and like the Indian was a witch doctor or something like that, medicine man. That's what he was, a medicine man, and he would bless the guy's crops. Well, one winter he didn't give him the pig. So, of course, curse befell upon Jedediah Tate and his family. One thing led to another, and he went out in the swamp looking for his cattle, I believe, and then is when he was bit by a snake, not once, but he was snake bit again, and he spent like 7 days, and right as he crawled out to the road and died, his last words were like, "I'm Jedediah Tate, and I've been through hell." So they called the area Tate's Hell ever since. So if the legend doesn't frighten you, the sounds at night will. And that's mainly what I will talk about, is because we had put our trout line out, and we were waiting on the bank at this little like campsite. And when I say campsite, it's literally just a cleared off spot on the hill. It wasn't civilization or anything like that.
Yeah.
And directly across us, we heard this weird sound. And it kept going on and on and on. It lasted for like 2 minutes. And we were shining the flashlight, but it was a little foggy at the time, and you couldn't really see anything. I had actually left my good flashlight at the house, and we had stopped at the Dollar General and picked up one just so we could see. And so we couldn't really shine across the river. But I asked my son what he thought it was. Like, I couldn't think of what it was at all. And he said it sounded like something scooping water up. Maybe with its hand, because when you would hear it splash, but then there'd be a little drip, and then it would splash again, and then a little drip, and then a splash again. And this went on for like 2 minutes. And definitely one of the strangest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, that sounds a bit strange.
Yeah, and my son's not really he likes going bigfooting and stuff like that, but he's, I don't know. I guess he just doesn't believe enough to like want to go all the time. He'll go with me,
Yeah.
But when he heard that, he was like, man, that was, that was weird. So it made us scratch our heads.
Wasn't there some story about they were teaching something about you in one of his classes?
There was a little class down at the high school. It was like a elective course or something right here in Wakulla County. And they were teaching about cryptozoology for the 9th graders. And there was a segment in there about, my dad's footage. And so, he had to take that class. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I wonder if he actually told anybody that, hey, that's my dad and my grandpa.
That's crazy.
Dad, you got me beat up at school today. Everybody found out that it was your Bigfoot video. Well, let me go ahead and...
As far as Bigfoot videos go, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, well, it's the only one to me that I know is real.
Yeah.
Every single other one I have to look at is just like, and that's why I hate it. Like, that's the problem. You never know. And I mean, even you, about mine, you don't know, you weren't there. But if you're there when it's filmed, it doesn't matter what anybody says. I know what happened. You know what I'm saying? So it proves it to me. Well, let's go ahead and get Marty on the line and get this show started. So tonight's guest is a friend of mine. You may have also seen him on the Skunk Ape Lives. He claims back in 1983 that he shot a skunk ape. But a good friend of mine, I want to welcome Mr. Marty Morgan. Marty, how you doing tonight?
All right, man. How's it going?
Oh, it's going, man. So, I've heard a lot of these stories you got. Some I haven't heard. But I thought, we'd bring you on and get you to talk about your stories because they are pretty good. They are very interesting. And I think they should be shared, with the masses. So, I guess the first question would be, what was the first thing, that kind of brought the skunk ape into your world?
Well, let's see. If I went all the way back to whenever I was a little boy, I mean that would be back then. I didn't realize all the things that was going on in my life, would ever amount to what actually happened to me. But I'll just start from what really brought everything to life is when the night that me and my friend Jim we were going to go fishing and we'd set out cat lines. All day long, we waited and Jim was saying, well, dude, there's like, I have this feeling all day that something's been watching us from up there on the bank. We ain't thought nothing about it, I'm just like, oh, whatever, Well, it was getting, close to dark, and I was sitting there thinking, well, we've been out here, we've been goofing around, throwing the football back and forth with one another. And I said, man, let's go for a ride. I said, let's go see if we can see anything. Well, we're young. Okay, I was like 17 years old then, and ain't got a worry in the world. You ain't thinking about anything, other than just having fun, We get in my old truck and we turn out on the main dirt road, go around a couple curves. We ain't that terribly far from where we're camping at on the river. And the river makes a bunch of turns along the road. We're actually following the river as we're going down the road. And we make this one curve. As we come around the curve, I see this big thing sitting in the road, and I stop the truck. And I'm like, what in the world is that? Me and Jim was like, look at each other like we're dumbfounded. We got out of the truck, and it had its back to us. So we are in front of the truck looking, and I'm like, what is that? What is that? And Jim says, Marcus, look down here. And he's got big feet. Okay, he's always had bigger feet than me. And he put his foot next to a track that we could see in the truck light, and it like was dwarfing his foot. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And it scared me. I said, Jim, get the gun, get the gun, get the gun. Jim runs and grabs the gun. I just aimed and I shot. It was an old single shot 12 gauge. Whenever I shot, it just let out a loud roar and started rolling. And I turned. I was scared to death. I turned, went back to the truck, jumped in the truck, and about left Jim because he was still standing out there. He finally got in the truck. We hauled butt, got back down to where we were camping at there by the river. And I mean, we're sitting there with the doors locked and the windows up, and we sit there for a long time, just scared to death. I didn't know what to do. I mean, we've been in these woods our whole life. Okay, we grew up in these woods. There's no parts of them woods that I don't know from the outside to the inside. We've always trampled out or through the woods. We've hunted, fished. Them woods was part of our life. This was.
So, what made you shoot, Marty? Like, did it make a move towards you, or just
I was
scared
scared.
at
I
the?
was a young boy. I was stupid. Okay, let me make something clear. If I would have knew then what I know now, I would have never shot. I'd
Yeah.
have never shot. I was a young boy. I wasn't thinking. I was scared to death. Here's this creature, that I would have never dreamed would be out there. And
That's funny you say that. I had a buddy of mine who also claims to have shot, some Bigfoots out in California. But that's what he said. He said that it looked like a monster. He felt it didn't have a place, and he just shot it because he felt like it shouldn't be there. It scared him so bad, because he didn't think these things existed. He didn't think monsters were actually out there. And then when you're coming to one, in your sights, what are you going to do? So.
and also, whenever I'd shot that one, there was another one that was screaming, started just going ape crap. Well, that's what I was so scared. I wasn't looking at nothing. I was just getting out of there. But you're that age, and I'll be honest with you. Back in them days, by that time, we're down there fishing and stuff. I'd have been drunk. We'd have been drinking. It would have been. We'd have had a few beer, But that night, both of us was broke. We had just enough money to go fishing, and I guess it's a good thing. And
Do you think you hit it, or you don't know?
it was like I said, it was a old single shot shotgun. Whenever I shot, it let out a roar, started rolling out on the ground. I seen it, I heard it, and I just turned, I jumped in the truck. I'm just thinking, I'm getting out of here. We got to go. We were out hopefully going to see a hog or something. We ain't even thinking nothing like that. It's you don't think, hey man, there's going to be a creature out there that could tear you apart.
Right, right.
And I didn't know what they were going to do. All I knew is I was going to shoot it before it had a chance to come at us.
Oh
So
yeah,
you
it's
you've
always
had,
about self-preservation.
yeah.
We get back to the camp and we're sitting there in the truck. And like I said before, where we were from the point where I'd shot that one, it was just a hop and a skip across the river over to where we were at. It wasn't that far down the road. Um, we sit there debating it. Jim said, we need to go, we need to go, we need to get out of here, and I'm thinking to myself, my dad's boat's down there. I said, buddy, I can't leave my boat. I said, we got to at least put the boat in the truck. I got to get my boat.
You leave your dad's boat. It ain't the Bigfoot you got to worry about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my father had been passed away. Okay, I lost him when I
Oh.
was 12 years old, so it was sentimental to me too. Okay, it was
Okay.
one of the things that I had from my dad, and I weren't going to leave it no matter what, So,
Yeah.
we got out of the truck. Jim said, "Okay, let's do it." We went down there. I grabbed the front of the boat. Jim got down to the back of the boat, which was right near the water, and we grabbed it and started running. By that time, there was a loud roar. Something hit the water and just, drenched him in water. You talk about scared then. They were on top of us at this time. I mean, come back for, I don't know whether, I've heard now that, and I believe they won't mess with you unless if you harm them or mess with them. It'd be like us. Somebody mess with your kids, somebody mess with your family, you go after them. I mean, that's just the way it goes.
Right.
And we got the boat, threw it in the truck, and
Right.
I've never made that truck move so fast out of them woods. And the only thing I could think about was over at my cousin's house, which was 10 miles from where we were at, was a street light that stayed on all night long. And I parked my truck under that street light, and we did not move all night long. We just sit there scared. That's the scariest I think I had been in my whole life.
So, what was the next day like after this happened? I mean, did you go and tell somebody? Because it's human nature, I guess, to kind of, you always seek comfort in somebody, I would think. So you're going to try to get some advice, or I don't know. I mean, what did this do to you?
Well, let me help you with that. I grew up as southern as it could be. Okay. Um, you just don't tell stories like that. Yeah, I mean, the first thing, I mean, the way you're brought up, your family's gonna talk about you. You're gonna be criticized. You didn't want nobody. You didn't want them to think you was out drinking or doing drugs or something and just made up some mess. We never told any. I didn't tell nobody. There was only maybe one or two, a few people that we told. It was like our friends and stuff, and just from the way they treated us, after we were telling them this really happened, and they just laugh at you and they criticize you, and it's like those friends you had all of a sudden, is now talking about you all the time, and it's like, and your family, the way I was brought up, it was a big Christian. I was brought up in a Christian family, and they, you could not talk to them about that. That I knew better. I knew better than bring that up. I didn't say anything about it for years. I mean, till I was grown. My brother is the one person that I knew I could talk to, and I knew I could confront in everything. As soon as he, got a little older, I told him, and that's whenever me and him started doing our own investigating and going out and searching for them ourselves, because he wanted to have that experience, and we knew they were there, regardless of what anybody thought. We knew they were there, and we wanted to go try to find them.
So you've heard like stories about him, or other, friends or something that have had?
Well, yeah. Well, see, okay. There's two guys that I knew that grew up out there near where we grew up at. Okay. um One of them become a preacher, which is a preacher now today, and they were coming home late at night from a little town called Greenville, and they lived in Sermons, and they was headed back. Well, they took the back roads coming through the woods. They ran out of gas, and well, no, they didn't run out. Their car was overheating, and they needed water. So they walked down. There was a little creek not too far off the road from where they were at. They went down with a jug, was getting some water, and it was a bright moonlit night. They said they were walking up to the river, and they could see this big creature sitting on the side of the bank with gray tinted hair, and it was eating fish, and it was just sitting there making a weird grumbling noise, and it scared them so bad they ran all the way back home, and they didn't even tell their mom and them. They couldn't tell. It's like I told you, we just didn't want nobody to know things like that, because the way you would be treated.
Right.
And they told me that, and he's a preacher today, and he'll tell that story. He's told that story. They've told me that story many times throughout the years. And
Right.
that was one of the stories, that hit me after. And I'm like, well, I know that I'm not the only one. Okay. And I had told him what had happened to me. People who has had encounters, you don't, you don't feel bad about talking to them about it. You want to tell them because you want to get it out of you, and tell them, this happened to
Right.
me too. Don't feel bad.
And I guess that's just the way rural America works. You know what I mean? Just don't say much about it. So, I guess once you got into doing research, did you ever have any more encounters with the creature, or was this kind of, just it?
Well, no, we've had a lot of encounters. I mean, it's been um, off and on. We would go out on nights and we would, have not. We took one of my brother's buddies with us one night. We went out to a place called Hickory Mound, and we rode out there because we had had some activity out there before. Um, he was in the Jeep with us, and we told him, we said, we were telling him about the creatures and about how we've been getting response. We've had knocks and howls and, all kind of response back to us. Well, he didn't believe all this, he was like, we've went off our rockers, but he was going to go with us anyhow. So we rode out there. My brother had a Jeep Cherokee at that time. And we pulled up out right next to the end of where the marsh meets the clearing before, you get to the actual water. And my brother and me stepped out, and my brother started doing howls one way, and I did howls the other way. And he's standing behind us, kind of giggling, like, what are y'all doing? Well, it wasn't no time. We had two distinctive howls back at us. That boy got in that Jeep so fast. And we were like, what's wrong? We told you, they were here. You wouldn't listen to us. So we said, let's go and get closer. And he's like, no, take me home. We're like, no, come on. Just don't worry about it. They're not going to bother you. So we went all the way around and got, pretty close to where we thought we heard them responding to us. And my brother made a knock on a tree. And we waited a few minutes, and it was just as loud and pure as it could be, a knock right back to us. And the boy, he's like, that's it. I got to go. We said, we're trying to, they're not going to bother you. We're just trying to show you. But, it's the way he believes it up to today now. He was a skeptic. He did not believe
Right.
us. He thought it was funny. He made fun of us. But, it's like I like challenging people because I know. And people makes fun of me, and that's fine. Go ahead and make fun of me. But I dare you to go with me and let me show you proof. And you explain to me how an animal of any kind is in these woods taking a stick or rock or whatever and making a knock.
Well, see, that's what I was wanting to ask you. What do you think the knocks actually are, and why do you think they're doing them?
Okay. Number one, I mean, a lot of people has said that, if you listen to it, it sounds like that they've taken a big solid piece of lightered wood and ramming it against a tree. Okay. That's one theory. Okay. I've also heard that they can make that sound with their hands, which would make sense because their hands are so big.
Right.
I've also heard that they could make that noise with their mouth. There's different theories that people has come up with, and that's why we're doing this. To try to figure it out. We don't know everything, and that's why we're trying to figure it out. Why they do it, I believe, is a communication thing. Because one thing, and this has happened numerous of times. Okay, say we're out doing an investigation and we're getting activity, a lot of activity.
Right.
All of a sudden we'll get one or two knocks and it goes quiet. You don't hear nothing
Gotcha.
else. You don't see nothing. It'll get just quiet.
Right.
It's like that knock means let's go.
Yeah, we've heard that knock before.
Yeah. So this Hickory Mound spot, how far is this place from where you had the encounter where you fired the shots?
Oh, it's just through the woods. It's all connected. It's Highway 98 splits the woods out there.
Right.
Okay. it's just a stone's throw through the woods out there. I mean, that's what I would say. But for a creature that big, I mean, they travel. They have to eat, so they have to be traveling everywhere. But that's where also we've determined that there is more than one group. We believe that there is more than one group out there because we can go. We've been from one side and had activity, went over to the other side and had activity over there too. So these creatures cannot. Well, I say they cannot. We don't know nothing about them yet, but
How far?
be from say 15, 20 miles over the other side of 98 by the time we get there. And we shut off and then have activity right away. That's why we've been, studying them for years now. I mean, I'm 53 years old. I had my experience when I was 17 that, lit my world up. And ever since then, I've been trying my best to prove that they exist.
So, this area, just so everybody knows, the Osceola Wildlife Management Area is 50,471 acres. And I don't believe that's actually counting goose pasture. I think it's something completely different, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so how many in this large of an area? Because this, from my understanding, this is where you've been doing your research all your life, right? Or since your encounter.
Right.
And I've been out here. This is where we do the majority of our research now. So just for me to explain to the listeners, this place is legitimate jungle. Like, I mean, thick woods. You're going to see every animal that would be in Florida will be out in this place. It's full of bear, hogs, cats, and then it's just some of the most beautiful swamp too, because you have the Wassissa River there, the Osceola River, and then the Econfina River. They all kind of like come down before they go into the Gulf. They all kind of come and meet right here. And so this whole area that he's talking about is very lush wilderness. And, it's very possible that something could live out there. So a creature this size could sustain itself, throughout and be able to survive. So, it's a good place to look, is what I always thought about it, and, it's yielded results. So how many of them do you think there actually are in this area?
Well, let's be, let's think like us, okay? Because they're so human-like, okay? Let's just take a wild guess and say a period of 20 years, okay? How many kids can be born within that period? I mean, they're breeding. Their family groups is the way we're seeing it because of the evidence and stuff we've recovered. Who knows? That's what I mean, who knows? I mean, it just depends on how much they've bred, just like us.
Right. Well, you gotta, I don't think, I don't know. The population thing is the one thing that's always bothered me personally, because I just don't think there's a lot of these things out in the wild. I remember hearing one time where there was and this was fairly recently, where there was only like 100 Florida panthers out in the wild. When in, reality, there's probably more about 200 to 300, because the biologists and stuff will tell you they don't come into certain areas of the state where I know they are actually at.
Well, that's a point I was fixing to say, though, Stacy. The panther's been seen in places where biologists claim they're not supposed to be. Also.
Oh yeah, I have those tracks from over by where by Torres State Park.
Exactly.
Of Florida panther, and they say they don't come over these far.
Exactly.
Well, I actually recorded one on thermal. You can see it.
Exactly.
You can tell it's a panther.
Exactly.
Well, it all depends on how fast they can breed too. Like, you know,
Well, like wouldn't
if
interbreeding be an issue? You know, that's the one thing I'd always thought is that you can't keep breeding the same gene pool because I mean you're gonna eventually have some like problems with
yeah,
some
Yeah.
development problems and things like that. So that would kind of make you go extinct. So to think that there would be, I just don't know. I don't know what kind of number you could put on in that many area, or that many acres. How many creatures there could actually be. If there was more than 10 of them, I would be surprised. Myself.
Yeah. Well, that's where the getting out there and studying and finding out. I mean, um, there's a lot we don't know about them. I mean, we hardly know any. If you really think about it, I mean, without being able to actually study them closer, which is something that we've been trying to do, and hopefully one day, that possibly will happen if we could ever, be able to study them closer. That would be awesome because we could probably get an idea of you know how they're reacting with one another and everything. Now, we've heard more than one story, okay? Out in Terea, the old man who said that he has his persimmon trees. He watches a family of them come up to them persimmon trees, or well, before the storm went through, and he would watch that family of them stand there and eat persimmons while one of them would stand and watch him while the other ones was eating. That was a family group, he had said.
that'd be crazy to see something like that.
Oh yeah, just to look out your back window and there is a family of Sasquatch or Skunk Ape down by the little river, and they're eating your persimmons. What would you do?
You got this one big one standing here staring at you, like you better not move off the porch, It's like,
So, I guess let me ask you. I usually ask everybody this. Uh, what is the weirdest thing that has happened to you while doing your research for the skunk ape?
okay, that's the easy one. That's one that I can't explain today, and it's left me puzzled. We were in Torreya State Park. Um, I was sitting in my van. Everybody else was out investigating a cave that they had found, and I was sitting in my van, and I was on. It's like a clay road, okay, and hot. It was real hot, and if you walked on that clay road, anybody's been near a clay road, and it's hot summertime, you can walk across and you can hear it literally crunching under your feet whenever you're walking. And I'm sitting in my van. I got the doors open. I'm just waiting, and listens. And this is in the middle of the day, hot middle of the day. And I knew everybody else was down at the cave investigating the cave, and I was just sitting there waiting for them to come back. Because most of them was riding with me. And about that time, I heard crunch, 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 crunch. Somebody walking behind my van across that road. And I looked around, I was like, okay, that's a good one. I thought, somebody just sneaking up there and messing with me, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good one. You can come on up. And I waited a few minutes and nobody ever come, I never seen anybody. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I got out of the van because I knew what I heard. I walked around, I ain't seen nobody. So I said, okay. Now the wind ain't like there's no wind, nothing. Okay. I sit back in the van. I'm sitting in the van, and probably about 10 minutes later, and I hear it again. As soon as I start hearing it this time, I look in my rearview mirror. I'm looking behind the van. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I mean, something going across the road and right beside my van. If you ever been up to Torreya State Park, it's very steep, and it just drops off right the other side of my van. I was looking out I literally got out of the van this time too, and I did not see nothing, but it sounded just like two big, huge, heavy creatures crossed the road behind my van. I could not see. There was nothing. You could hear it plain as day. And that's the one thing, I mean, one of the things that up to today, I'm still scratching my head over.
Wow.
I've never had something like that happen before.
Nice, nice. So, do you actually think that this will be proven? And if so, you know, how long do you think it's going to be? What do you think it's actually going to take to do it?
Well, as basically everybody has been saying, it's a sad theory, but nobody's going to be happy because nobody's going to believe any. I mean, we've already got track evidence, castings. There's castings by the millions. Dr. Meldrum's got a whole huge room full of castings. I mean, and it's proven that none of these are human tracks. We've got castings. Everybody has castings. That's one that, I mean, that's, to me, that's proof. That's a huge footprint. Okay, there's been hair samples found. They've tested these hairs, and what do they come back saying? Well, some of them say an unknown origin. Okay, um, they'll say they're contaminated with human DNA. Well, of course it would say that because in my book they do have human DNA. They are so much like us. Why wouldn't they have human DNA in their blood? You know.
Right.
Um, but what is it going to take? I mean, everybody's busted their tails out there. Everybody has got pulled evidence after evidence after evidence. But they're not going to be happy unless if the whole world sees a live creature and they say, "Oh yeah, that's real," or they see a dead creature that someone literally kills and takes out and shows. And it's sad because if you've if you've encountered one before, it's like you're looking in the eyes of a human being. I mean, it's more human being than it is creature. I mean, if you have no problem with shooting somebody point blank, killing somebody, I guess that that would be no problem. Now, if I feel like I'm in harm's way, I'm going to defend myself just like if I would with a human being, but in more times than one, more cases than one. And I know now because I'm disabled and I get around on a scooter and I still get out there and I'm still in the field and I'm not scared to go out in the dark by myself and go do these things. I could have been killed so many times, torn apart. And everybody else in my research, everybody who I've hunted with, who's had encounters with these creatures, if they were that aggressive, we would be dead. But yet, what is it going to take for this great nation of ours or for scientists or everybody to say, hey, these things really exist? It's going to take somebody killing one of them and dragging it up there in front of the whole world and saying, here it is. I mean, it's sad, but that's exactly what they want.
Well, do you think that you killed the one you shot? Or, I mean, what do you think actually happened to that one? That was what I meant to ask you, and I completely forgot because you could have already been this person.
And that's something that has bothered me, knowing what I know now.
Right.
There was nothing ever found. I mean, nobody never said anything about that they had found anything. But you know what? They
How soon did you go back out there?
I couldn't go back out there. I didn't go back out to that area for years, many years. Matter of fact, the night whenever we did the Skunk Ape lives out there, I think I may have been out there one time in the daytime, just rode through real quick since all that happened. I mean, it was something that dramatically messed my head up for many years. And I had a lot of stuff going on in my life back then too, that
Right.
was bothering me. But that right there is something that I couldn't get out of my head.
Well, so do you believe that the other ones were helping it once it got wounded? Because I know you said it kind of flopped around and screamed, right?
Well, it's like I said. Now Jim seen the bigger one come out there to it. Whenever that's why he was still standing. That's why he was still standing out there. That's why Jim was still standing by the truck. Whenever I done got in the truck, and started to leave.
Right.
And yeah, and I know that's what I mean. There's never been bodies found. People say, why ain't there any bones found? Why ain't we found bodies? Why have we? You know why? Because they are hiding their dead. They are hiding their evidence. I mean, I could tell you another story where they literally covered their tracks up in an open field. I mean, this has happened.
What made it to where you're able to go back out and start getting back out there?
Well, it took many years. I got married, run off to Tampa, Florida, and I got married, and I went through a bad relationship. I was dealing with so much stuff in my life, for many, many years, that, I couldn't get back out there. But let's see, it was probably, I'd say around 2001, whenever I would start going up to Perry, and it was never me and my brother would start going, we were going out fishing and stuff at night. And then, we decided we'd start, going to doing more in-depth search for the Bigfoot. We've been steady at it. Me and him would just go and just ride all night. We'd ride, and just look. And there's been so many encounters that we've had, that it made a believer out of him. And he knows that they're real too. So I had that in me. I mean, I've had that passion in me, and I've wanted to get back. I wanted to go looking for them, and I had a lot of things I had to get cleared away in my mind, so I was able to do the things I wanted to do, basically.
Right.
It wasn't that I was too scared to go back to the woods. I was raised, the woods is part of me. I was raised in the woods. So it wasn't that. It was just other stuff I was dealing with in my life. But it's been, you know, on and off experiences, throughout everything that I've been doing. I mean, almost every time we'd go out, we'd have some kind of encounter. Do you have an encounter every time you go out? No, you will not have. I mean, I would be the first one to tell you, I'm not going to promise you we're going to go out tonight and we're going to get, evidence, because it's not going to be that they're going to be staying in one spot all the time waiting for you.
Right.
Okay, you have to find them. It just happened to luck that lots of times whenever we're out there, we're at the right spot at the right time.
So is it more of a, from your point of view, because you have been in the same spot for so long, and I know there's a handful of spots within this area that you go to, that you frequent. So do you just necessarily always go to the same spot, and you know that one time they're going to come back, eventually they're going to come back through? Do you see that's a better way? You have better luck than as if you're just trying random new spots all the time?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We know they're going to come through. It's just a matter of trying to figure out and pinpoint exactly when they're coming through. Because whenever we think that we got them tied down, and oh yeah, they're going to, let's say they're usually hot through here in October, it's not always the picture. It's not always dead on. They're going to be there every time.
Right.
The area is so big, okay, they do move around. Now, whether if it's because, I see you have an abundance of food out there. I mean, there's crab apples, wild persimmon, all kinds of berries. And I know from the research we've done that they love the swamp cabbage, which is basically the palm tree that we call swamp cabbage, because you can cut the heart out and eat it. And they
Right.
do too, because we found where they've literally twisted the hearts out and ate them. Okay, that's with their hands. Okay, the only thing we have out there other than you would say a Bigfoot is, a big creature is a bear. A bear don't have, they don't use their hands to do things like that. But,
Right.
you know, and I don't know if they just following the food source, if maybe they know something we don't, this blooms over here a certain time, or the fish are better, we go to different fishing holes, okay? The fish are biting over here, that's where we're going to go. The fish are biting over there, that's where we're going to go.
Right.
They have a
right.
huge area out there that they can move around, and they know what times of the month, what times of the year that they want to be in certain places. That's the way that I kind of think, you know. Um,
Well, you're right on that, and that's honestly kind of what you would want to do. It's like, because I seen this one thing where the guys in the Texarkana area, I believe, they believe they had tracked, like, kind of chipped a Bigfoot, and they had built this trap with this little, like, frequency chip, and the Bigfoot would walk through the area and it would snag in his hair, and then he would track it, or they would be able to track it. So they were guessing it was a Sasquatch. There's no real proof that that's what it was. They did actually, attach their chip to something that went around those mountains. But, I guess if you could just chip the food source and then follow the food source, then when you go and find the food source, then that's where they may be. That's not a bad thought, man. Well, Marty, I appreciate you coming on, brother. It's been great talking to you.
Anytime, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Marty.
Yeah, Paul. Good hearing from you, man.
Hopefully we can get back out there soon and.
Oh yeah.
Get you out on
y'all
the cart.
know I'm ready.
Right on. Well, yeah, y'all check Marty out. He's in the Skunk Ape Lives. He tells his story. He's not as in depth in the movie as he was on this show, but I wanted to give him a chance to tell his story a little bit better, and I think we did a good job of that tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Marty.
Very interesting stories, man.
He's always fun to listen to.
Yeah, he tells a good story, so.
Especially when we're out in the field, boy, he gets excited.
He does, and the thing about it is he had first contacted me back in 2015, and a buddy of mine had been telling me, hey, you need to talk to this man. You need to talk to this man. And I ended up, putting it off for about 2 years, and then I was just bored one evening. I believe it was like a Thursday night or something. And I called him up, and I said, hey, man, take me to your spot tonight. If it's that active, Go ahead and take me to it. And he did. And it was one of the more active nights that I've ever had. I believe there was actually like 3 of them that night, kind of knocking all around us, in close proximity. Because we actually went after one. We went towards some knocks, and it was like right as we were getting right about where those were at, there was another one. And then so we went towards that one, and then it was coming from a different location. So it was pretty good. And then ever since that, I was kind of hooked, on that place. And then when Hurricane Michael came through and destroyed the Torreya spot that we researched, it was kind of a good spot to just fall back to, and that was still there.
Yeah. I wish we would have gone towards one of those knocks that we heard that one night.
There's always that Monday morning quarterback where you wish you could have done something different.
I say that, but then I was relieved to get out of there that night though too, so.
Right. I mean, I was kind of terrified, that night. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, because they were right up on top of us, dude.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So, well, folks, that's all the time we got for this evening. But y'all make sure to check us out on the web, skunkapefiles.com. And check out the Skunk Ape Lives. Any of y'all got a sighting? You got a story? Go ahead and email us. What's that email, Paul?
Yeah, just if y'all have any encounters or anything like that and want to hit us up or just want to say hey, you can email us at the skunkapefiles@gmail.com.
All right. Well, I am Stacy Brown Jr.
And I'm Paul Sanson.
Thank y'all for tuning in. We will see y'all next time.
See you.
You're listening to the Skunk Ape Files.